Straight ahead on Law&Crime Daily. Attorneys for the accused Michigan school shooter announced plans for an insanity defense. Plus, a new sentence for Tiger King star Joe Exotic. How long an Oklahoma court rules he will stay behind bars. And Michael Avenatti continues the cross-examination of Stormy Daniels.
He's an egomaniac. He thinks he's the best lawyer who's ever lived, even better than Abe Lincoln.
But will he take the stand in his own defense? But first,
the gun's going to be destroyed. His property was returned on Wednesday.
But who is entitled to Kyle Rittenhouse's $2 million bond? Anjanette Levy is live with Friday's courtroom developments. Law&Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. When you thought you'd heard the last of Kyle Rittenhouse, he's back in the news. We now know where his $2 million in bail money is going and what's happening with the gun he used to kill 2 men and wound a third. Law&Crime's Anjanette Levy is here with what happened in court.
Brian, Kyle Rittenhouse had actually reached an agreement with his former lawyer, Lynn Wood, and the Fight Back Foundation over that $2 million bail. The court approval was just needed. The judge needed to sign off on it. But a hedge fund company came in at the 11th hour and tried to claim the entire $2 million because it said it made some sort of a deal with Rittenhouse's former lawyer. Now, Kyle Rittenhouse was not in court for this hearing that took place, but he and his lawyers had agreed that he and Fight Back would each get $925,000 and that actor Ricky Schroder would get back $150,000 he donated to the bail fund. But a hedge fund company had a lawyer in court who claimed a company had invested $300,000 in the bail fund, expecting Rittenhouse would be acquitted, and that the company expected a return with interest. That company also claimed another former Rittenhouse attorney, John Pierce, owed more than $2 million, so the fund was entitled to the bail money since Pierce posted it. In the end, Judge Bruce Schrader said the hedge fund company had no standing and approved the deal between Rittenhouse, Fight Back, and Ricky Schroder.
How does that feel?
It's good. It's over.
You got what you wanted accomplished in there today?
Yeah, the gun's going to be destroyed. His property was returned on Wednesday, and the money is going to people who divided up Fight Back, Kyle and Ricky Schroder, who posted some of it.
Do you know how much his portion would be? Kyle's portion?
Can you tell us?
Can you tell us?
No. No, the pillow guy does not get any money back.
Can you explain why Kyle Rittenhouse was so insistent about destroying or having that gun destroyed? What was his reasoning?
Because there was dual claims to the gun, and we did not want the gun being returned to Dominic Black and then having him sell it as Kyle Rittenhouse's gun, like has happened in other famous cases.
Now, Dominic Black, you'll recall, was that friend of Kyle Rittenhouse's who was with him that night in August of 2020. He had actually purchased that gun for Kyle Rittenhouse. It was in his name. So legally, he likely would have been deemed the owner of it by the court. Now, the state and Rittenhouse agreed that the gun will be destroyed by the state and that the state will videotape that process and then provide a copy of that recording to the defense. Brian?
Thanks, Anjanette. Joining us today is former prosecutor Melba Pearson and Terry Austin. Melba, Judge Schrader said Rittenhouse's gun will be destroyed, and interestingly enough, it's going to be videotaped, something I think we all want to see. What do you think of that decision?
I think that was a solid decision for all of the reasons that Mark Richards itemized. I think there's that ethical and sort of moral responsibility to make sure that his actions are not celebrated, right? Because you have to think about the fact that people lost their lives, and there's family members who are never going to see their loved ones again as a result of his actions, even though they were deemed to be legally justifiable. So the destruction of the gun, I think, sends a clear message that we're not going to celebrate, these types of killings, basically death.
Yeah. Now, Terry, crowdfunding is becoming more and more popular in terms of raising money for bail in these types of cases. Do you think the courts need to kind of make a bright line rule for how this is going to work in the future? And what would it be?
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. Listen, I listened to the entire 43-minute hearing. It was long, and all of the parties seemed like they were confused, even the judge. So I think we need a clear and consistent rule, and I think it should be applied even federally, although this is criminal. I think it could go to the ethical considerations as far as a lawyer's practice is concerned. So what you want to do is make sure defense counsel is not involved with the fundraising, make sure that the funds are used specifically for what they're supposed to be used for, and make sure that the investors know that they are using the money the way it's supposed to be used. So frankly, I just think it should be revamped federally.
Yeah, I think it'll help a lot, and probably other people in the stories we'll cover later will be asking questions about what do I do with my client's money, like Avenatti. And Jeanette, the fight over the bail could have gone ugly, and it almost did, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Brian. You know, Kyle Rittenhouse's mother had said a while back, she had told Law&Crime.com that she wanted a full accounting of the money that had been raised through the Fight Back Foundation. And it sounded like Kyle Rittenhouse was really expecting to get that full $2 million back. But the Fight Back Foundation, I had spoken with Lynn Wood about it briefly in the last month or so, and he said that Fight Back raised a lot of that money strictly through the Fight Back Foundation for other means and by other means. So he said he was willing to help Kyle out, the foundation was, with some of his expenses that were still outstanding. So Kyle had kind of taken some swings at Lynn Wood in the press, and obviously they've worked this out to the satisfaction of both sides.
All right, sounds interesting. We'll see. We'll wait and see when that video comes out, and that's going to be the next big thing in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. All right, switching now to news out of Texas, where officials say the man responsible for the death of a Houston corporal has been on the run since, get this, 1996. They also say he's wanted for another murder in El Salvador. On Wednesday, Oscar Rosales was arrested in connection to the death of Corporal Charles Galloway. Investigators say Rosales shot and killed Galloway early Sunday morning during a traffic stop. His arrest came days later when he was found more than 600 miles from Houston in Mexico. At a press conference on Thursday, the Harris County District Attorney confirmed Rosales was wanted in connection to a murder in El Salvador and a 1996 charge for absconding from probation. She says Rosales will face the strictest sentence possible for his history of violence, cartel or gang affiliations, and capital murder charge.
Oscar Rosales, the defendant, viciously executed Corporal Galloway. He violated this sacred oath of the officer who was in the line of duty by killing him. The crime of capital murder can only end two ways: in the death penalty or in life without parole. This case has all the earmarkings and is a death penalty case.
An update now on the Brett Hankinson trial out of Kentucky. Jury selection began on Friday following a judge's rule that cameras will be allowed during the trial. On Thursday, Jefferson County Judge Ann Bailey Smith denied the defense request to ban news outlets from the courtroom, but did rule cameras cannot roll during individual voir dire for potential jurors. Hankinson is the only officer charged in connection to the death, but not for the death of unarmed black woman Breonna Taylor. In March 2020, Hankinson and two other officers forced their way into Taylor's apartment, authorized by a search warrant. Taylor's boyfriend, thinking they were intruders, fired a warning shot. Taylor was shot and killed as officers responded with gunfire. Hankinson is charged with wanton endangerment, as prosecutors say he endangered the safety of people in an apartment neighboring Taylor's. Jury selection is expected to last for weeks as hundreds of potential jurors are questioned. Still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, Tiger King star Joe Exotic is resentenced in the murder-for-hire plot to kill Carol Baskin. But first, cross-examination heats up as Michael Avenatti.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law & Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law & Crime Network with YouTubeTV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTubeTV today and then locate Law & Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law & Crime every day with YouTubeTV. We put you in the jury box.
Welcome back to Law & Crime Daily. Cross-examination takes a bizarre turn in federal court as disgraced attorney Michael Avenatti questions his former client Stormy Daniels about her belief in the paranormal. Avenatti pushed to represent himself in the federal trial as prosecutors allege he stole $300,000 from Daniels. Daniels, an adult film actress whose real name is Stephanie Clifford, rose to fame after news broke of an affair with former President Donald Trump. Her tell-all book, Full Disclosure, details the affair. Prosecutors say Avenatti stole advances for that book deal, saying he used the money to pay employees at his law firm and make luxury car payments. On Thursday and Friday, Daniels took the stand as the government's star witness. Avenatti questioned her about her belief in ghosts, the supernatural, and whether she believes she could speak to dead people. But, as legal analyst Gene Rossi explains, Avenatti himself could also take the stand.
You represent yourself, you can take the stand, and if you got a judge that really wants to rein you in, that judge will make you state a question that can be objected to, and you will answer your own question. If I were the judge, and I've seen it, you ask a question of yourself and you answer it. I'm not going to let you get up here and just do a narrative and a speech like Edward Everett, the 2-hour speech before Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. You're going to do a question and answer. He asks himself the own question, because you got to have that for purposes of objections and the appeal.
All right, before I start asking questions of myself, let's bring back former prosecutor Melba Pearson and Terry Austin to break down Avenatti's cross. Terry, the credibility of an alleged victim is always in question, but is attacking Daniels' belief in the paranormal sound like a successful tactic?
It's not a tactic I would use, Brian. I mean, some of the jurors could go for it. They might actually question her credibility, her judgment, particularly the fact that anyone would agree to represent someone else for $100. But the tactic could really backfire, because there are many people who believe in the paranormal, and some of those jurors might resent Avenatti for attacking her beliefs. Everyone has a right to believe what they want. And more importantly, Brian, some might think it's not at all relevant. So it might backfire on him.
Yeah. Now, Melba, I was there in court today, and after the cross-examination and recross and all that of Stormy Daniels, Avenatti actually said he is, quote, strongly leaning towards taking the stand. How do you think that's going to play out for him?
I don't think it's going to end well for him. I don't see how he can move forward in this case without getting on the stand, but I don't think he's going to be able to sway jurors because of that brash, high-profile personality that he has been exhibiting over the course of the last few years. And it can be very off-putting, especially in this type of scenario where you have someone who is alleging this massive fraud. So he's going to have to get on the stand to explain the conversations that he had with her and why he believes he's entitled to this money, but I don't think it's going to sway the jurors at all.
Yeah, especially from his cross-examination, he seemed to kind of go around the issue of this signature and money going into a separate account. I don't know, maybe he'll have some questions for himself to answer. I've never seen that before, but I believe in Gene Rossi's description of that. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out next week. Thank you both. This week on Prime Crime, host Jesse Weber takes a deep dive into a case out of Ohio, which left a toddler dead and a babysitter behind bars. He joins us now with a look ahead. Jesse?
Hey there, Brian. Yeah, our next episode is about the death of a 3-year-old girl named Hannah Weshy and the babysitter accused of killing her. That woman is Lindsay Parton. Now, she claims she wasn't responsible for the toddler's death, yet it's all about what she says, not just in one, but 2 police interviews.
Hannah's not good. Whatever happened to her happened this morning. And she has a severe brain bleed.
Oh my God.
So what we need is the truth from you.
But yeah, that is the truth.
We need to know how this happened. That way we can treat her.
I'm absolutely telling you the truth. Oh my God.
The way it's looking right now is that this happened at your house, because we need to find out. We need the
I
truth.
swear to God, I'm telling you the exact truth. We walked in the house
From what the
and
doctor's saying,
she
she did not walk, she did not talk with this type of injury. None of that is
did.
possible.
I promise you she did.
But it doesn't end there, because Lindsay Parton also took the stand, which threw in a whole other layer to this story. Tune in to Law and Crime.
Thanks, Jesse. You can catch this week's episode of Prime Crime Friday night at 5:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Eastern here on the Law and Crime Network. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, an update on accused school shooter Ethan Crumbley as his legal team announces the focus of their defense. Plus, Tiger King star Joe Exotic is resentenced in Oklahoma court, but will he face less time for his crimes? The answer is next. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. Netflix star Joe Exotic will spend a little less time in prison for his crimes after being resentenced on Friday. But his plea to be freed was denied. A federal appeals court ruled the Tiger King star should get a shorter prison sentence for his part in the murder for hire plot against animal civil rights activist Carol Baskin and for violating wildlife laws. Joe Exotic was sentenced in January 2020 to 22 years in federal prison. A panel for the U.S. Court of Appeals found the trial court gave the wrong calculations for his prison term. The former zookeeper was resentenced to 21 years behind bars. Former prosecutor Melba Pearson and co-host Terry Austin is back to break down Joe Exotic's sentencing. Now, Terry, a federal judge said that the sentencing was a little off. At first, it was 22 to 27 years. Now it's supposed to be 17 to 22. Couldn't the judge have just said, hey, you know what, we're going to be 22 years and that's it? But it only dropped by a year. So is that a win for Joe or not?
I don't think it's a win for him. I mean, dropping it by 1 year is certainly not a win when it's the difference between 22 and 21. I think the judge essentially disregarded all of Exotic's arguments. I mean, they completely ignored the community support. And I actually think that Joe Exotic had some good arguments here. I mean, granted, he was convicted of murder for hire, and that's a very serious charge. But I didn't think, frankly, that the evidence was good against him. And I think that at this point, he certainly is not a threat to society. So I don't think this was a win for him. And I think people are disappointed.
Yeah. Now, Mel, I agree with Terry. I think the judge kind of heard the arguments and was like, all right, 12 months, I'll just go down a little. But should the fact that Joe Exotic is fighting prostate cancer be a reason to reduce a sentence even more?
It can be a very solid reason to reduce the sentence because if you think about it, if you have a terminal condition of which prostate cancer, most cancers would be considered to be a terminal condition, that's usually grounds to get you an earlier release or basically like a conditional release where you can go home to basically live your last days with your family and loved ones. So since that can be grounds for a reduction of your sentence or an early release, then it should have been taken into consideration in terms of this resentencing, but clearly the judge was having none of it, and that's why he ended up with 21 years.
All right, we'll see where this goes. I'm expecting Joe Exotic to have quite a few words about just that 1 year reduction in his sentence. Thank you both. When we come back, a 15-year-old suspect will argue the insanity defense. What that means. Welcome back. We look now to Michigan, where suspected school shooter Ethan Crumbley will argue an insanity defense at trial. 15-year-old Crumbley is accused of killing 4 people and injuring 7 others in a shooting at Oxford High School in November. The teen faces 24 charges. Of those charges, you've got 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of terrorism. He's being tried as an adult, even though he was 15 at the time of the shooting. Before allegedly opening fire on his classmates, teacher reported concerning behavior from Crumbley, which including these disturbing photos you're seeing of a gun and a person bleeding. Other concerning evidence showed the teenager allegedly killed animals and even stored the head of a dead bird inside of a jar. Crumbley's parents, James and Jennifer, are also charged in relation to the shooting after allegedly disregarding warning signs that their son was a danger. Prosecutors also say they allowed him easy access to the use of a gun. Crumbley and his parents have pled not guilty to all charges. Under Michigan law, Crumbley will now undergo a psychiatric evaluation to determine whether he was mentally ill or intellectually disabled at the time of the shooting. Melba, an insanity defense, it seemed to be the obvious move here. How does it work, and do you see it as a strong defense in this case?
I don't know if it's going to be a strong defense in this case, but definitely it is a viable one. So basically, the defense is going to say, listen, we did it. Ethan, the defendant, did in fact shoot these people and take their lives. However, at the time of the offense, he did not understand right from wrong. He did not understand that his actions were wrong and could result in death. So that is what they're going to advance as their theory. They will have the drawings that they can point to, as well as some of the other disturbing behaviors that he's exhibited. But the question is going to be, what were his actions right up until and right after the incident, and how can that shape whether or not showing what his mental state was? That's going to be the question.
Yeah, I see those drawings being a real issue for them, though, because he kind of scribbles them out afterwards, making it seem like he knew they were kind of bad, but we'll save that for the trial. Terry, there are different cases, totally get that, but could Ethan's medical records and a potential insanity defense affect the Crumbley parents' case and even potential civil lawsuits against Oxford High School?
Well, I do think that the case against Ethan and the case against his parents will have different charges, of course, so the evidence is going to vary. And as far as the civil case is concerned, clearly it's going to have different evidence and obviously a different burden of proof. But I do think that that insanity defense could actually help both the parents and the school, because they could say that they didn't know that he was going to snap and they had no control and they didn't anticipate his behavior. So if he is deemed to be insane, and that does come into the other cases, it could very well help both the parents and the school as far as their claim is concerned, or their defense.
All right, we'll see how that evaluation comes back. Thank you both, and thank you for joining us.